Just in terms of time management, I'm going to actually kick this awesome event off. So good morning and good afternoon, good evening, and thank you so much for being with us for this Guesty virtual meetup, Beyond Protection, Leveraging Security as an STR Strategy. So as a quick intro, and for those of you that don't know me already, my name is Petra Sava, and I am the Senior Technical Program Manager here at Guesty. And I'm actually quite excited about today's session. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to our fantastic guests. First, we have Simon Sarosi, CEO of SweetUp, and joining us live from France. And we're also joined by Phil Cooper, founder and visionary of Ohana Properties, who, while not live today, is sharing his perspective all the way from New Zealand. So a big thank you to both for bringing their insights to this awesome discussion. Thanks. Okay, so in terms of just giving you a sense of how today is going to flow, we're going to start with a brief intro from me to set the stage for our topic. And then from there, I'm going to pass the mic over to Simon, who's going to share his intriguing presentation. Get ready. Um, and the topic will be turning stakeholder security needs into strategic growth. And since it's currently 4 a.m. in New Zealand, I will be playing a pre-recorded presentation from Phil on Ohana's incredible growth driven by their breakthrough protection strategy. Once we wrap those up, we'll open the floor for Q&A, and we'll cover both pre-submitted questions as well as live questions from the audience. So please don't forget to submit those questions. Also, of course, Simon and myself will try to answer questions in between our sessions. Cool. So with that, let's dive into our today's topic. But before, I do want to just take a quick minute or two just to introduce Guesty to those of you who are not yet familiar with what we do. Guesty is the leading property management software providing short-term rental hosts and property management companies the most comprehensive and streamlined set of tools that you need to operate seamlessly, bringing in more bookings, of course, creating those excellent guest experiences, and ultimately growing the business. So yeah, we've been around since 2013. We've raised over 400 million in funding, have 16 offices worldwide and customers in 90 countries and counting. But why should you care about these numbers? Well, this team, this funding, our global locations means that we're investing in you and your business every single day. It means better distribution. It means we can focus on those core features and functionalities that are really going to deliver higher ADRs and operational efficiencies. So what's more, it's our packages really are built for every size of the business, right? So from one listing to thousands. We start with, as our introduction, Guesty Lite. This is our offering for hosts with 1 to 3 properties looking to maximize earnings on autopilot and grow with ease. From there, property managers with 4 to 200 listings can take advantage of our Pro package, which is going to offer professionals a way to optimize their operations for efficiency and scaling. And then for enterprise companies, looking at about 200 plus listings, we offer customized scalable solutions to transform operations. So the bottom line is whether you're just getting started or are a full-time professional property management company looking to scale, Guesty offers a solution that is suited to you and your business and its needs today and in the future. So let's dive into our topic now and talk about Guesty's suite of security features, which are really designed to protect your business from reservation to checkout with industry-first built-in coverage that eliminate risks and earns guests trust even before they check in. So our full spectrum coverage does adapt to your business with flexible plans, fast activation, and intuitive tools embedded seamlessly into your workflow. What does that mean? That means instant claims, swift payouts, new revenue streams, all from within the Guesty platform. So now let's take a look at each offering. And depending on your location and operational needs, Guesty users can build a perfect coverage plan for their unique portfolio. That means that Guesty Shield is available as a full suite or as modular features. I'll kick it off with damage protection, which is usually our most popular security measure or offering. This is our friction-free alternative to dispute resolutions and process claims that ensures coverage for guest-related damages. Think damages from a party. Guests accidentally broke a lamp, stains a carpet. All of these claims are created seamlessly through your reservation page. We then have the liability coverage. This is essentially a $1 million policy on all reservations with automatic coverage for accidental injuries or damages from the moment the guest books. Consider this proactive risk management against guest or third-party injuries. So, for example, a guest slips and breaks their leg and needs to go to the hospital, or there is an accidental fire on the property. Essentially, this is your peace of mind and this is protecting your property and your revenue. We then have Screen and Protect, which is really focused on our EMEA and APAC users. This is going to automatically screen guests using their email address and or phone number. Essentially, Guesty will screen your guests and assess the risk of them causing damages, then grant you back up to $50,000 in case of actual damages. Again, please note that these are not available worldwide or globally. Each of these have their regions that are covered. It's on screen. Also ask any questions as we go along. Also then recently we introduced Guest Verify. This allows you to screen every booking or guest with thorough background checks across multiple databases. Think of this as your real-time risk scoring that flags problematic patterns, ID validation, ID verification, and it's seamlessly integrated with the Guest app. It's good to note that the automated screening is available globally. However, the background checks available in US only. We then have our travel protection. And this is the part where guests can actually elect to purchase a travel protection policy at checkout on your direct booking site. Plus, you get to earn a commission on each sold policy and outsource cancellation requests. And finally, we've got our final product within the suite is Pay Protect. This again works seamlessly with Guesty Pay, in which we will automatically block fraudulent cards for direct bookings and sends alerts for suspicious OTA reservations. So when we're collecting payments, the system handles the 3DS authentication behind the scenes and in real time, all to reduce chargebacks and that friendly fraud. So, but why Guesty Shield? Why should you secure your business? There's three simple reasons for that. One, obviously, you're going to automate and centralize all your risk management processes into a single dashboard. This is going to save you time so that you can focus on what actually matters, and that is growing your business. You'll drive growth while protecting your revenue. So by eliminating those costly deposits, you not only provide a peace of mind to owners, but also are able to earn that passive commission on every booking. This helps strengthen those relationships along the way. And then I think one of the most important ones is going to be safeguarding your reputation and keeping those reviews positive. Guesty Shield is going to ensure that you enjoy a friction-free stay, that your guests enjoy a friction-free stay with a deposit-free coverage and hassle-free claims resolutions. That means no disputes and no awkward conversations with your guests. To summarize, the Guesty Shield Suite is the fastest and easiest way for Guesty users to protect their business and their revenue. It's seamlessly built right into the platform. You have everything you need to verify your guests, prevent chargebacks, cover your listings, submit claims, track payouts, and more, all within the Guesty dashboard. And now I think for the most exciting part of this webinar is going to be introducing Simon to the stage, who is going to share his insights on the industry. Simon, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Bella. All right, fantastic. Well, hi everyone. I'm Simon Sarusi, co-founder at SweetUp. I'm really, really excited to be here with you guys. I recognize a couple of names in the attendee list and excited to get a chance to, right now, virtually chat and exchange some words with all of you. I think I'm really excited about this topic because of how unique it is. We usually see security as defense, but today we're really going to flip the script And we're going to really show you how security can actually be an offensive growth strategy for your revenue, for your portfolio, and for your peace of mind. So with that said, I'm going to be sharing my screen and we'll get started. All right. Is my screen visible right now? Screen sharing is paused. I can do resume. There it is.
I don't see it, Simon. I see your
Try that again. Give me one second. Do this. There you
here we
go.
go.
And we'll pull this up. How about now?
Yeah, perfect. Full screen. Excellent. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Um, First, just a quick intro about what we do over at SuiteOp so that people get a bit of context. So SuiteOp is guest operations built for hospitality. So we connect with fantastic tools like Guesty to bring in reservations, smart devices, and all of your service teams in one place. We do this through guest portals, next generation upsell infrastructure, some guest screening and verification as well. A lot of it which can actually compound with Guesty's great products that Peter just highlighted, and multi-team task management. And we power it all with AI and automations as well as unlimited workflows. Our goal is to drive additional revenue, but most crucially, to allow you to focus on high-touch hospitality and reduce a lot of the operational noise that as property managers, we're all way too familiar with. Um, with that being said, let's dive into things. So I think the first thing to take into consideration is that security in general is not a one-size-fits-all type of strategy. You're dealing with a lot of different stakeholders, and that's probably the hardest part about being a property manager. You're not just taking care of guests, you're taking care of homes, property owners, and obviously your own interests and your own company and teams as well. And throughout that spectrum, every single one of those stakeholders is going to have very different needs and very different concerns as well when it relates to security. So here, obviously, some of the examples of some of the concerns that tend to be raised very often. For property owners, the concern is often first a psychological one. They want to make sure, especially if this is a secondary home, right, that the people that are actually staying there are ideally good guests, folks that have been to some extent vetted. And they don't necessarily need to know every single detail of that vetting process, but at the very least know that there is something going on there and that you're not just opening your door to anyone who's willing to pay. The second portion, I think, which I think a lot of homeowners are always concerned about, is a legal one. Lack of being able to being hit with a lawsuit is always a massive concern that can for an individual, especially not a company here. And so that's an important concern to take into account when developing your security strategy. Homes, while they're not person per se, they still have, I think, different priorities than homeowners, because those priorities are to some extent shared by you and by homeowners as well. And when it relates to security and the impact that it can have, positive or negative, the first one is going to be wear and tear. So the more guests are entering a home, the more wear and tear. The home is inevitably going to go under. That's a natural thing. You can see that when you go through hotels that have been open for 5, 6 years, where walls are starting to get scuffs, and that's the same thing, obviously, in the short-term rental world as a whole. Obviously, the second thing is accuracy. Furniture breaks down, whether it naturally through wear and tear or whether through accidental or intentional damage. And that really is important because if you have to replace a couch, have to replace a piece of furniture, you want to make sure that it's going to be as accurate as possible in terms of the photos that merchandise the home so that you can continue growing your revenue safely and not welcoming guests in a home that may look nothing like the home that was launched 2, 3 years ago. Obviously, on your side and the property management side, security concerns really tend to be more around operational concerns, likely simplifying the claims ops burden. That's obviously a really big one. It's time consuming to do claims, and you want to make it as streamlined as possible. So whether it's through your PMS, whether it's through your own internal processes, you want to make sure that you have a claims process that does not add burden both to teams that complete the claims process as well as the teams that actually on the ground collect various information in order to make it successful. And then obviously the concern I think of every property manager today is more cash flow per booking. We're in an ever more competitive space, and when margins are tight, you want to make sure that every single booking can be as valuable as possible. Now, with that being said, it's all a pretty fine balance, and you need to be able to balance this out with the needs of guests. Guests obviously have different needs when it relates to security. Those needs are mostly around ensuring that they can actually access the home safely, and having some sort of peace of mind. At the end of the day, some guests are going to be business guests, but whether they're business or vacation and leisure travelers, peace of mind is something that guests want to have before, during, and all the way after their stay. Guests want to be able to just enjoy the home and not be burdened with any security concerns. And so when you look at all of these different security concerns, you're starting to understand that each of those can unlock different opportunities. So for example, in the world of homeowners, there's going to be an opportunity there to use the security concern in order to grow your portfolio. And we're going to talk about some of that in the next few slides. In the context of homes, you're actually going to want to have a security strategy that is going to be able to keep your homes as high quality as possible, in order to make it more attractive to bookings, and generally create better guest experience. For yourself, you're going to want to generate more revenue per booking and obviously as little ops headaches as possible so that you can continue to grow without having to hire team members just to be on top of claims. And then in the world of guests, I think, Peter raised that earlier, but having a solid security strategy can actually have an important reputational impact on your portfolio, especially depending on the segment in which you are. For more luxury segments, that may be more of a concern than if you're, offering more budget homes. So if we start with homeowners, it's about asking the right questions. So I wanted to share a lot of the different questions here so that folks that are attending here obviously will be able to get the recording after the call. Folks that are watching this later will be able to have that reference here. But those are all really important questions that you can first ask yourself, obviously, in terms of, do you check all of these boxes as an operator today? And then if you do, utilize these when you're prospecting owners. Their portfolio growth is also competitive today. And in that way, having a very solid security strategy, having one that is cohesive, that matches the type of homes that you're actually taking on, is going to help you sell to homeowners, increase the size of your portfolio. Not only that, but also it's going to help considerably with retention. A homeowner is going to be a lot less likely to switch to a property manager that has a shinier proposal with a couple percentage shaved off their fee, if that means that they're exposing themselves to massive security risks, which could, take everything down. So here is a list of questions. I think, definitely want to highlight a couple. But each of these questions, at the end of the day, are around separate topics that should be at least considered, ideally implemented in your security strategy in one way or another. There's going to be the legal concerns that we mentioned earlier, and there can be different legal concerns there. Legal concerns around, for example, a slip and falling and liability. Do you have a liability policy today that is different than that of the homeowner? And are you making sure that the homeowner has been added to the liability policy? Depending on where you're operating, some countries are more litigious than others, but in the United States, when a guest slips and falls, they're not just suing potentially the property manager, they may also be suing the homeowners. There's really very little to no limits there to their rights to be able to take on a lawsuit. So you want to make sure that you have liability insurance. And for that, many things are available out there. Peter shared the great option of Guesty's liability insurance earlier. There's Proper. You can also talk to your own insurance broker. Happy to offer plenty of recommendations there. There's going to be other concerns that are going to sometimes be either more home dependent or sometimes legislation dependent. For example, some legislations actually require you to check that there are no registered sex offender booking the homes. And that's sometimes an actual requirement for you to be able to have the right to be a property manager in those jurisdictions. Arizona, Sedona is an example of these. And so here, being able to have a solid guest screening strategy with whether it's Suite Verify with SuiteUp or Guest Verify with Guesty is going to be pretty crucial. Um, there's other heroes that we'll get into, but ultimately some of the different items that you can start thinking about are going to be liability insurance and guest screening, property insurance as well, right? It's going to be always, separate in your mind liability from property insurance and separate property insurance from actual wear and tear or damages of, say, furniture. Those are going to be very different things. If the home burns down because a guest left a stove on, that's one thing. But and you need a particular insurance that's going to cover that size of liability. Now, if a home's dining table has a scratch, you're probably not going to file a property insurance claim. Your premium is going to go up more than it's worth, and that's where other potentially solutions can come in. Guest's damage protection that can be done at booking, right? A security deposit that can be done either at booking, post booking. We're going to talk about also damage waivers and how self-insure damage waivers or those that can be compounded with Guesty damage protection can also be a great security strategy to help you with wear and tear. Ultimately, there's many, many different options there that you can start looking at. But it's crucial, and what I would love is sort of at the end of the call that you take this list here and check the boxes, make sure that all those boxes are checked because truly your business depends on it. It's one of those things where there's often the thought of it only happens to other people, other businesses until it sort of happens to you. Now, that being said, you need to make sure that whatever strategy you're building is going to be harmonious. You cannot have a security strategy that is going to be, focused exclusively on guests at the expense of homes and vice versa. And so building a cohesive strategy there, both in terms of financial investment on your end and in terms of the types of properties that you have in your market is going to be crucial. There's definitely no one size fits all. So the really second portion, we've spoken about sort of property growth and portfolio and how a solid security strategy can help you there. But growing your portfolio is one thing. An opportunity that is often a call it lower hanging fruit and that you can start implementing today is growing your existing revenue with the existing assets that you're operating. And you can do this with a very strong security strategy. Really, it's a flywheel at the end of the day because every single element of your security strategy, from pre-booking and even setting up homes, all the way until a guest staying and post-booking, is going to help you generate more revenue. So we'll start, for example, at booking. At booking, you could be offering a damage protection, like what Peter raised earlier, that can be part of the rate. And here, I would encourage everybody to add a markup to it. So the markup can depend. There's no hard fast rules there, but I definitely encourage you to add a markup. One, because there's some time that has to be spent on your team's time, on your team's end to be able to actually process claims, etc. But perhaps the other reason as well is you're putting together a product, you're putting together processes, and it's only fair to have a markup as part of these. You can then potentially compound this with a self-insured damage waiver, which can be offered to the guest post-booking, pre-stay, where a guest, in addition to potentially ID verification, rental agreements, and other specific checks, can be presented with an optional damage waiver that they can have the option to add more peace of mind and effectively increase the coverage that you're already offering them. This ultimately leads to peace of mind during a guest stay. And post-booking, it helps you and your teams have faster, often non-OTA dependent claims. We know how painful it is to go back and forth with sometimes some of the OTAs on some claims. So having your own protection there to be able to streamline this and have that not be OTA specific, but be for your entire company can be helpful. And with something like a self-insured waiver, you can also ensure that if there's small wear and tear, you're not even going to reach out to the guest. If there's a tiny stain on one piece of linen, sending a message to the guest and ask them for, $13 for a new pillowcase may be overkill, will ultimately be detrimental to the guest experience. And that's the type of things where having a self-insured waiver can help. And then last but not least, having a solid security strategy, and we sort of mentioned this earlier, but I do want to highlight it, buys you peace of mind too in terms of wanting to invest in the homes that you operate. Higher end furniture, higher end equipment, because you're not worried about a potential breakage and you have an actual strategy in place in order to handle it. So there's just two quick close-ups that I want to do, and the first one is on self-insured optional waivers. So optional, the ways first to understand these is those are different than a damage protection that's done at booking. Those are, you can think of them as basically a guest paid fee that can be either fully optional and that I guess can completely waive, or that can be optional but as a choice between a waiver and a deposit. And that one is managed directly by you, hence the term self-insured. So there is no third-party insurer here. And that means if there's a big claim, you're going to want to rely on Guesty's damage protection, for example. This is not intended, again, to replace liability, property insurance, or even a potential damage protection plan, and it can be combined with it. So the way to think about it is, with damage protection, what you're really doing is offering peace of mind to owners. You're telling owners that you're picking up X dollars per booking in order to pay for some sort of insurance. With a self-insured damage waiver, you can offer additional peace of mind to guests, where you're telling guests, hey, by booking with us, you already have damage protection. You can add additional coverage that may cover those excluded items, for example, which damage protection may not cover, or other items as well, and buy yourself peace of mind. As long as you make it optional, it really does not create detriment to the guest experience. And we find that anywhere from 30 to 60% of guests that book with a property manager using those types of self-insured waiver with SuiteOp tend to select it over either nothing or over a security deposit. The idea here is then you then put those funds internally and you set them aside, and then you can use them for various strategy. A rainy day, where you actually have a bit more damage, and maybe that damage is not covered by a damage protection plan that you have. But you can also use it for investment into the properties that you operate. That's probably one of the best, most interesting ways that I've seen it getting used as a growth engine. You're collecting all those fees, you're putting them aside, and then once in a while you decide we're going to make a significant investment into that home, maybe even pitch it to the owner to make a co-investment into the home, which could help with owner retention and will ultimately help with your and the homeowner's revenue by having a home have more high quality investment in it, whether it's through furniture, OS&E, etc. And then I think the another thing that's often overlooked, and it's often seen more as a cost saving or an efficiency tool, and that's IoT. IoT, for those who don't know, stands for Internet of Things, and it's a pretty wide term that tends to be used to refer to smart devices as a whole. And those smart devices, many of you already use them. Smart locks for contactless check-in, for example, and smart thermostats often used for energy savings. While these smart devices are often looked at for cost savings and efficiency purposes, they also naturally have a security impact, whether it's securing the home or whether it's securing its contents. But what's often overlooked is that they can actually, when put through a proper workflow, really drive additional revenue. And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of other revenue opportunities, upsells, early check-ins, late checkouts, etc., that folks often are hesitant to provide because they're quite hard to actually do reliably and offer to guests when needed be. And so you can utilize workflows. This is an example of how it can be done in SuiteOp, but there's many ways to do it in order to automate end-to-end a process like that. So really the level one of IoT security and access control is in general using it to just ensure that guests have access to rooms, suites, vacation homes, buildings, or amenities only when they need it, right? And revoked automatically at the end of the booking. And that's how most of you are probably using those today. There's obviously a second level, which is staff oversight, right? Ensuring that entries and exits of various staff members and other folks, contractors, and so forth and so on that you use in your operation is properly measured so that you can drive accountability. You can then go to a third level, which is controlled access. And What that means is only giving some people in your team access to homes when they need it, when they have a task, and when there's actually something to be done in those homes. That is an important security strategy because, and I'm sure it's a fear that every property manager has. It's a fear that a lot of you have actually experienced in real life. A team member walks onto a guest. And in some compromising situations, that can also lead to a big security breach and therefore a lawsuit. So you want to make sure that your access control isn't going to impede your growth by causing an issue like that. And then we spoke about those advanced automations and early check-in. So there's all sorts of ways here in this workflow. What you're seeing is a workflow in which when a upsell early check-in is approved by a team member, it can first push a notification to the right members of your team, letting them know that that's been approved for that date. It can then update automatically the check-in time. That's where things are really important. You want to make sure that access is only given for the right time. And so in the event of an early check-in, that may be a bit earlier. In the event of a late checkout, that may be a bit later. But you still don't want to just dole out, backup codes because a guest is getting an early check-in or a late checkout, and then have those codes effectively like live in the wild, which can impact the security of those homes. And then in that case, it can also even email the guest automatically and do all sorts of really interesting things through those workflows. But I think this is an interesting illustration of how things like smart devices that often are purely seen as efficiency and cost savings can actually help also be put into as part of larger workflows to drive more security and more revenue across your portfolio.
Awesome. Thank you, Simon. You bring up a really good point because so we've looked at sort of the suite, like all the different types of insurance liability waivers, fees that you can add, and a lot of those are, as Simon had said, you're able to either earn a commission or mark up, pass the fee off to your guest. And then there's the IoT side of things, right? Your noise awares, your home automation, lock systems, etc. And then even further, if we want to look at that and understand and say there's also other things like your rental agreement signatures, right? And that also is another sort of tactic or strategy you can take in terms of protecting your homes, making sure that guests are fully aware of what your house rules are all the time, right? So that's now looking at things that you can do in the system on your own, and making sure that your listing descriptions, your house manuals, your guidebooks, your messaging all includes all the relevant information. So that way you basically like, dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's, having all the documentation ready if in case there is ever a dispute or something that you need to actually claim against. So thank you, Simon. That was very insightful. So now let me go back. I'm going to share my screen again, and we are actually going to hear from a property manager themselves. This is Phil's pre-recorded presentation, so bear with me here. We're going to start it in the next slide, and essentially he's going to tell us the incredible story of how Ohana Property utilized Guesty Shield Suite to actually skyrocket their revenue and scale their business. So with that, here we go.
Hi guys, this is Phil. My name's Phil. I'm from New Zealand, beautiful New Zealand. So I thought I'd just give you a little bit of a background of who we are and why Ohana has been successful. So just to give a little bit of quick background of where the name Ohana came from was I was a single dad, raised 6 children as a single dad, and obviously Ohana means family. So anything to do with family was important to us. So that's why the name Ohana is very much strong with us, and it's helped us as a family grow the company because our values have always been maintained that it's about family, it's about creating experiences. So I think as you see now, we've got 15 grandchildren. So my kids came to me about 8 years ago when I first started my first Airbnb, and they said, "Dad, why don't we call it Ohana?" So that's the story and the history of how the company has started. But also, I think it's really important to notice that's also one of the fundamental reasons why the company has grown so fast, because we've maintained our family values and we try to create experiences for families rather than just a hotel experience. So that's a brief background about us. Now, the good part, some of the good parts is, guys, New Zealand. I know every one of you would love to move to New Zealand. The reason is we're the first people to see the sun. We see it well before you guys do, so we enjoy it long before you guys do. And the other thing is, guys, doing business here is a lot easier. A lot easier to do business here in New Zealand. Less regulations, even though it is getting harder with Airbnb regulations. But the other thing, guys, it is a beautiful and safe country to live in. So, guys, from all around the world, come and visit this amazing country. And of course, hey, come and stay at Ohana. 180 properties, 150 odd properties New Zealand wide. So that's New Zealand. So let's get to the business. So the business side of it started, as you know, 7 odd years ago. We started with one property and then we grew very quickly, and we soon realized that there was margins being left behind by people not, because we had different sides of the business. We had Ohana Linen, we had Ohana Construct, and I think having those 4 different departments allowed us to, or companies allowed us to grow and be self-independent, and we were independent and been able to self grow as ourselves. We weren't relying on other elements to grow fast. So that's why we've been able to grow. So now to some numbers, guys. So the stats are, guys, 7 years, 80, close to 90% occupancy, 150 odd listings and growing, $200 million in portfolio management. We have a split where we own lots of properties of our own. We manage others as well, and then we have a 950 bed capacity across New Zealand, and that equates to, guys, about 2,500 beds, sheets and towels washed every day. So it's substantial. I think I found out that we are the second largest hotel brand in New Zealand based on the number of beds. So the thing is, it's a lot harder when you're across 150 properties, 160 properties around New Zealand. So there's our performance, which, you know, speaks for itself. But hey, it hasn't always been. It's, as you know, it's not easy. So we are across many platforms. Airbnb being one of them. Obviously, we're Superhost. We've got 30,000 reviews, but we're not just reliant on Airbnb. Airbnb is just one of the many platforms, and obviously, we have also been looking at trying to diversify and mitigate our risk as well, because it's having your eggs always in one basket is not always a good business strategy. So there's that. So let's now get to the Guesty. What has been probably for us the most, how we've grown the fastest. So this part for me is very important, because we were with various other platform software management things. We've tried quite a few of them, and it was a couple of years ago, we were given the opportunity to try Guesty itself. Now, we also grew, just so you know, our growth was the fastest ever during the COVID, or just around that COVID time, because everyone was nervous. Everyone was pulling away from short-term rental. We saw the vision and thought, hang on, it's going to come back. And sure it did. So we then had 20, 30 properties about COVID time. And at the end of COVID, we had 150 odd properties. So we weren't afraid of the risk. And I think what you have to do when you're running any business is actually accept that you need to also partner with other organizations and other people that also have experience. And Guesty came along, and guys, sorry, I have to blow the trumpet for them because they don't do a very good job of it. But I will actually tell you that Guesty has helped us grow just from not just from a property management portfolio. It's also helped us grow from a financial side of it. I think this is really important that you understand. It's not just about software; it's about expanding your revenue base. And how do you expand your revenue base? Or are we losing revenue that we shouldn't lose? Or are we, there's so many things in running a business that it's not just clear cut. But here's some numbers for you guys. So last year before we had joined Guesty, which is Guesty Shield, which is a Guesty Shield, which is a insurance package that is through Guesty. Our claims department, which ironically we've only just put on a claims department in the last 6 months, right? 12 months of fully dedicated claims department. So the claims department last year was about $26,000 for those 2 months of claims across the whole 180 properties. So the same time this year with Guesty Shield, it's, as you can see, it's over double that. So, and then obviously the other exciting thing about it is we not only is it the revenue, but also what we've found is that it's mitigated our exposure or so-called retaliation reviews. Now, you all know how retaliation reviews or reviews that work with Airbnb, where a guest breaks a chair, you put a claim in and tell them, hey, you broke the chair, it's $140. It leaves a sour taste. So in the first years, never, ever, we'll just suck it in and wear it. So we've lost so much revenue over the years in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, we would say, because we just felt we'll just suck it in. But, with Guesty Shield, the good thing about it, it doesn't, you go through the process, which is seamless. You provide the receipts, blah, 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 and then it's not taken against the guest. I'm sure you've got to show evidence, you show the photographs, all of that, but there's no retaliation. So I think that's been a really important factor to us in being able to grow. And I think also fundamentally, the other thing which has enabled us to grow our portfolio is the fact that we've been able to go to a client. I've got a $7-8 million property, and especially in New Zealand, some of the lakes of Tekapo got amazing properties. So they're like, well, how are you going to protect our property? How are you going to give me insurance that my amazing property is going to be looked after? Bingo. Here, guys, Guesty Shield. The guests are paying let's call it a damage waiver fee, which shows on the booking. The guests are paying that $30 for themselves, and also gives them the protection as well. So it's a win-win situation. You don't have to worry about collecting the bond. You don't have to worry about that. You just say, hey, that fee's $35. And then we were able to go to these clients and say, hey guys, don't worry, you're covered up to $50,000 of damage. And it's really important it's really important. And that's helped us grow with our clients. And I think the reason why, we'll tell you in a minute, we've had some horrific damages from a guest. So Nick, we had one, for example, here's one example. We really get this amount of damage, right? So this will be the first time we've had a party that's trashed the house and left, damages of $15,000. So we were able to put a claim in pretty quickly because obviously we needed this property back and running. So we put a claim in, it was like $15,000, and it was approved and processed really quickly. So the great thing about that is the approval is as long as you follow through a process, it's like anything. Follow the process, tick the boxes, make sure you have your paperwork or your photographs and then in order. I think in the end of the day, you will then be able to really absolutely grow your revenue. So Guesty and the insurance policy is very much about growing also growing your revenue, not just the software package. So, guys, I'm sorry I can't be there in person to talk to you because it's 4 o'clock in the morning and I love my beauty sleep. But any of you guys that are going to be in Mexico next week, I'll be there, and I think I'm one of the speakers there. So happy to catch up with you and talk if any of you are there. So good night from New Zealand.
Cool. So we've been answering questions, or at least I have. I know something came up. So Laurie McCarthy, this was mostly, I think, in terms of what you had said, Simon. She asked, with self-insured damage waiver, is that refundable at the end of stay, provided there is no damage?
Good question. So no, it's not, and that's why obviously the goal here is making it an option, right? Well, you certainly don't want to require a guest to pay a non-refundable fee at all, unless it's prior to booking, the way Guesty's damage protection offers. So I think what you may be thinking about is more of a security deposit, which is in this case typically is going to be an authorization hold on the guest's card, and typically can be renewed automatically all the way until checkout, and then at checkout, usually 2 days after checkout, automatically released. The big difference there is if you were to do a waiver and refund it, you'd still pay payment processing fees, right? Regardless of the payment processor that you use, because the charge would have happened. Whereas with an authorization hold, you wouldn't. So offering your guests, an option between, hey, an authorization hold of say $250 that's going to start now and expire automatically, and in this case, to your point, not be refunded, but just drop off the card at checkout, or a damage waiver, which is going to be a one-time charge that is going to be much smaller. Typically, we would recommend it to be anywhere from 3 to 5 times at least smaller than deposit, because it has to be an attractive option. In which case, you're basically telling the guest, hey, if there's any damages that are already not covered by whatever damage protection you may have, we won't hold you liable for it. It's a promise to the guest that you can utilize to then generate a lot more revenue and use that revenue in any way that you see fit.
Cool. Okay, great. So that does answer, hopefully that answers your question, Laurie. Thank you so much. Okay, so in terms of so regulatory environments, we didn't really touch on sort of, what does that mean in terms of how does that impact your security, right? And it's rapidly evolving. And I think every PM right now is sort of trying to look ahead and make sure that they are protected. How do you see security technology helping property managers stay ahead of compliance rather than sort of being in that reactive stage all the time? And just so you folks know that Simon is also a property manager. I believe this is how he started in this industry with us. He used to, well, he does. He still has So Sweet. So he kind of is coming at this from like very, two sort of perspectives. So thankfully we have Simon, property manager, and also vendor, who can really talk to sort of both sides of the coin. So I think as I said, I think the regulation is super important. So how do we make sure that we're going to stay ahead of this?
Yeah, I wish I had a second outfit and I could just like
take your glasses off,
put
put
a
a hat
cape
on.
Yeah, there you go. I'm
Yeah,
gonna go Clark Kent
exactly.
to Superman property manager.
Exactly.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, before SuiteOp, and a lot of our experience building SuiteOp came from building SoSuite, SoSuite longtime Guesty customer, and property management company with a few hundred units under management, and we've learned a lot there, and certainly around regulation, I think is definitely an important topic. So I think to address what you're sharing here, Peter, in general, I think that regulation we've all seen is moving really, really fast, and too often it's moving faster than you can really react. It's also moving often despite yourself, and there's a lot of things you can do, but your control is too often limited, unfortunately. And I think we've all seen that property managers aren't included as much as they should in regulation conversation. So what that means is really, in general, whether it's automated guest verification, whether it's access logs, right, for IoT and access control, whether it's insurance and waivers. all of them at the end, you can look at them a bit as like, digital paper trails of the various things that your guests have to go through in order to protect the home, that you are doing in order to protect your homeowner partners. And to some extent, it gives you a bit of like, I'm not going to say compliance by default, but pretty close, right? The idea is that if and when laws ever tighten, you're likely already ahead of the curve, instead of having to really scramble to catch up. I was using the example of Sedona, Arizona earlier. I think that's a really important one. Like in some jurisdiction, you
Yeah.
are required by law to do specific checks on specific guests. And if you don't do them, maybe you'll never get caught, but the day you are, it could put your entire business in detriment. So at least having a tool or tools that can have that option added when needed be, and that work that you've tested, I think is a great way to get ahead of potentially regulatory changes.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I totally agreed. Staying ahead of the curve and knowing what options you have is the first step. Michael asked quickly on the Q&A, can you speak about competitive landscape, unique value props, etc.? I have an answer, and I'm going to let Simon also answer on this because he is a vendor and but I think that when you're assessing what tools you want to use, you really need to understand your business and what are you trying to protect at the end of the day. Like, what are you trying to achieve? I always tell my users, look at what's out there, look at the pricing, look at like the process of, like their claim rates, like look at all the details, and then you choose and pick which one is going to work for you and your business and your team. Obviously, Guesty's value prop is that it's built into the system, right? It's seamless, it's an easy claim process in most of the cases. There's proper reporting, easy tracking, etc. So, like again, it's you need to assess for yourself what is going to work for you and your team. If you have a very small, lean team, maybe going the way of something that's super easy to, claim against, or perhaps either way, there are options out there, right? And it is pretty competitive. But Simon, what do you think in terms of, how do you assess what's going to be good for you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, first, definitely like your business and the type of business, the type of homes that you have. If you're
Mm-hmm.
exclusively managing $10 million homes plus, you need to have a security strategy that reflects that, right? So you can't skimp on specific things. And yes, maybe, I saw a comment there about someone saying, some of Guesty's products sometimes can be expensive at times. Yeah, but they're also, thorough, right? So if you have uh, uh, you know, those types of properties and guests that are paying $5,000 a night, then a $10 background check doesn't feel so bad if it prevents a potential catastrophe down the line, or at the very least protects you, right? When I spoke about digital paper trail, that's something really important. I know I'm not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice, but in the
Mm-hmm.
context of law, like if there's ever a lawsuit, and again, like as a PM that's built a large property management company, those happen all the time. If there's ever a lawsuit, uh, proving that you were non-willful, proving that you did everything you could to prevent an issue from happening, to
Yeah,
screen a guest, etc., is extremely helpful, and it's the type of things that can ensure that your entire growth doesn't just crumble because of one mistake. So look at your business
exactly.
first, for sure, and the type of properties you have. In terms of suite ops value prop and unique propositions here, I mean, the first thing is like we like to play well with other softwares, and we play really well, for example, with Guesty. Like we have some hyper successful customers that will use Guesty's damage protection at booking, right? And we'll layer that with a self-insured waiver that is optional for the guest to purchase to add additional coverage. And that's very successful. It gives you peace of mind where you can file claims for important things that come up, and it gives guests peace of mind where they know they're never going to hear from you for small wear and tear or even accidental damage. So with SuiteOp, I think one of the things we do that's our core value prop in general is we link everything back to workflows. I showed you how a workflow quickly works earlier, but it's the same thing here. You could say, hey, and the tools you use, right? So if a guest was to fail
Mm-hmm.
the guest verification, you could get notified, a task could get created automatically. You could have that fire a Slack message if you're using Slack, et cetera, et cetera. So we like to play really nice with both your PMS as well as the other completely non-hospitality tools that you use, so that you can stay on top of your security strategy. Because it's one thing to screen a guest, but when that screen fails, How do you make sure that the right team member is on it, that you look at it, that you address it in a time-sensitive way? Because no guest wants to be denied check-in for 5 hours just because it took your team that long to check, why their profile was higher risk.
Mhm. Exactly. So having the tools and the team behind it and the processes, the SOPs, as you implement each of these, features into your core business, having that in place is super important. Um, Somebody asked about where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? My team is interested in adding Guesty travel protection, and we're checkout for our guests, but we're also considering adding a less expensive non-refundable option alongside our normal rate. We're weighing all of these options. Would offering them all feel too cluttered or be overkill for guests, in your opinion? Okay, so there are each one of those features, right, is going to address a different issue, the way I look at it, right? Like your damage fee, your damage waiver is specifically focused on guest damages, right? Somebody breaks something in the apartment or the home, you claim, you fix it, right? Friction, it's dispute resolution. You don't have to bother with Airbnb resolution center. You don't have to, you're covered. So I think each one is different in terms of like what it's going to cover. When it comes to travel protection, it's something that the guest is going to opt into. And this travel protection is really, it's going to protect the guest against, if they need to cancel, right? Or if there's an emergency, and it has nothing really to do with you. They're going to opt into that or not. I like that because it's as some guests love to add travel protection and others don't. I'm one of those that skips it and just in hopes nothing bad's going to happen, or I don't need to be medically, evacuated out of, some area. So I think it really depends. Obviously, you're going to take, you want to be competitive and you want your ADRs to remain like, competitive in your market. So you do have to look at things like, we did mention, add a markup to your damage waiver fee, right? If it's costing you 30, add $10, $15 to it. But the appetite, in your market of how high can I actually go? When it comes to like liability coverage is again a very different type of coverage. And the guest doesn't even know, although you could pass some of those costs on again to the guest to cover it. Again, this is covering your home or your listing, your property, and this is more focused on owner relations and owner acquisition part of things. So sorry, I know that's not a clear-cut answer. I think it ultimately depends on your guests well, your geo well, your type of inventory well, and from there you're going to make those choices as to what do I need to do to secure my business and my revenue, and future-proof it, right? So Simon, I'll stop there and see what you also want to add
No,
to that.
I think it's great. I mean, test it, right? Don't be afraid to
Exactly.
test
That too.
and say break things a little bit here. Like guesties damage protection or travel protection in this case is something you can test. You don't have to commit for 5 years, right? You can do it, see if that works, see how your guests are reacting, see if it's impacting your reviews in any way. To Peter's point, see how it's impacting your bookability, right? Because what you want to make sure with any of those things, whether they're post-booking or pre-booking, right? But pre-booking specifically in this case, if you're adding a $50 damage protection, but you're selling homes that are $20 a night, because you're selling private rooms or cabins, etc., like whatever that may be in terms of inventory type, that may either mess up your pricing strategy or mess it up if you don't make a change to it and take it into consideration, right? Because suddenly somebody that wants to book for 10 nights is going to have a competitive price per night, but somebody who wants to book for 1 or 2 nights won't. So make sure that I would say test things and if you want to use third-party providers to test some of those things as well, most of them should be open to a trial and testing things out or giving you data on how their customers have done. I'm always happy to share what I've seen works and doesn't across our customer base and customers. I can always put you guys in touch also with existing folks that have tried different strategies. While we won't have the opportunity to look at Phil's video in the next 7 minutes, it will be sent to everyone and look at this strategy and see if that can apply to your portfolio and see if that's something that you can do. I'm sure you'll find some valuable tidbits in there.
Okay, cool. Simon, maybe you want to answer this now or afterwards, but Andrew is asking, what are the differences between Enso Connect, Aperto, and SweetUp?
Sure. I mean, listen, quite a few differences, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, all those are great companies. We focus, I think, on slightly different challenges. Operto, not to speak for them, but has some strong IT capabilities and focuses a lot on like their on Operto teams and their tasks. Enzo Connect, I would say, is a lot more guest experience focused, and that's what is really their trademark. With SweetUp, we take a bit of a different approach where we try and look at guest experience and operations really holistically. And I'm not saying that you can't do it separately as well. I think those are great strategies depending on, again, your business. But we like to think of
Exactly.
guest operations, right? So really, because when a guest requests something, it actually has to be fulfilled by someone, or whether it's a message, whether it's a team member that has to do
Yeah.
a task. So that's really our focus is ensuring that we connect your guest experiences with your operational teams through a couple of modules ranging from smart devices, guest experience, and tasks. I hope that answers your question, Andrew, but obviously happy to chat separately at any point.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So we don't have a lot of time left, but I did want to kind of just get this one question in. So for property managers in the audience who are just starting to think strategically about security, what is the one feature that you think delivers the fastest ROI in terms of both protection and revenue impact?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you had to start with at least one, I would do some more basic guest screening. It's a very low-hanging fruit, but I would make sure to do it, in a personalized way. You don't need to screen every guest the same way. No, this isn't about discriminating particular guests, but we all know that some OTAs and some sources do more work than others, and are very transparent typically about it, to screen guests. Airbnb typically does a quite a good job, collects already guest IDs, etc. And so this may be overkill because especially if, I think there was a question on, is this going to be overkill for a guest when I try to layer all those things? It can be, right? So you want to make sure that you have a strategy in which it's source based, but also guest type based. Is this a guest that is a returning guest or a first time guest? Is this a guest that is um, uh, staying for one night
Yep.
or staying for 30 nights? Right. So I would say like try experimenting with guest screening, and based on what you think are the highest risk bookings based on what you've seen. Like pull the list of claims you've done, collate, like put that side to side with the list of reservations that match those claims, and then see. Usually you'll pick up a couple of trends, right? Um, so I would say this is a great way to be able to just get started, get your feet wet. If you're thinking about ROI and revenue strategy, say a damage waiver is a bit of a no-brainer, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
damage
For
protection at
sure.
booking with markup, whether it's a self-insured waiver, or whether it's both from a
Yep.
revenue perspective. It's extremely easy to implement. Quite literally, you could go on Guesty, go on
Yeah.
Suite, and do both of those things in about 10 minutes, and see immediate results, right? We have folks generating 30, 40, $50,000 a month with a couple hundred units on self-insured waivers, in addition to getting protected with damage protection. So we're seeing some really great results out there, and happy to chat more async too.
Yeah. Speaking of just offering these services, and then I start putting on your property management hat. Like, have you, and I'm assuming that's so sweet, he uses SweetUp. How has, offering these services affected your guest satisfaction scores and repeat booking rates?
Yeah, good question. I think it also ties
Hmm.
into a question that came in from Michael, right, around
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah,
uh,
exactly.
yeah, great. So I would say there's a couple points. I mean, the first one is when the more you can offer optionality to guests, the more guests love it. I mean, we live in a world today where beyond hospitality, people want to have a choice. And if you're telling them you got to pay $50 after booking to be protected, it feels like a bait and switch. If you tell them, hey, you have a choice, you can either pay something totally refundable or you can pay a small fee, and it just buys you peace of mind. And on our end, it allows us to keep the homes in great shape and actually do a good job. So you want to make sure that your actual strategy from a guest-facing perspective matches your strategy operationally. If you're doing like self-insured damage waivers, but you're letting your homes go to crap, in 2 years there's actually a ton of wear and tear, then a guest is going to think, wait, I paid this $25 for peace of mind so that they can take care of some light wear and tear, and the home is really not looking great. So you want to make sure that your ops strategy, right, and whatever security strategy you have match. And then I think beyond that, it's ensuring that you use also guest reviews in order to improve your security strategy. Like we've seen some folks layer too many different steps, too much with the wrong sources. That'll show in review really quickly. So that's obviously a bit too late when it shows in an OTA review, but that's where there's other ways to measure it, right? You can do check-in surveys, which you can do through SuiteOp, for example. As soon as a guest walks in, they tell you how the check-in process was. And if you see that they complain about it, give them a call. Speak to them. What was bad? Oh, well, I didn't really enjoy doing this and that guest screening step. Okay, we'll take that into account. See if you can tweak it. I can pretty much assure you that one call to the guest is going to ensure that they won't complain about it likely in the review. So in general, we're definitely seeing that as long as you match your operational strategy to your security strategy, use it to keep the home in great shape, to keep a good reputation of a professional property manager and not someone that lets anybody through the door, you're going to have higher guest satisfaction scores. And you're going to have fewer owner objections when you're pitching new units. And that also means extra revenue and that can be obviously reinvested into your business. I hope that answers the question. Yeah, that's what
Excellent. I love that, Simon. And that also means that you makes it easier for owner acquisition, right? Because that reputation also sort of precedes itself inside of the industry itself, and you'll have owners coming to you because of the way you manage your properties. Guys, thank you. I appreciate everybody's patience, number one. And again, apologies that we were not able to play Ohana's video. I'm so sorry, Phil. You guys will get this recording, of course, and any questions we didn't get to answer, we will reach out separately. And if there's anything, if any of you are coming to Guestival, please, we'll be there. Simon will be there. In fact, even Phil will be there. So you'll be able to talk to him directly in terms of what's going on. If you have any questions, please reach out to events@guesty.com and check out guesty.com/events for our future meetups. And with that, we've definitely run out of time. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, and see you in Mexico City. Thank you, Simon. As always, I appreciate your insights. As was it Andrew or Michael said, you are awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll see you all in Mexico City as well. Hope you guys make it. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Cool.
Thanks so much, Peter.
Thank you. See you later. Bye.